What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for March 8th, 2021. If you clicked on this video, the thumbnail obviously said something about lots of improvements coming to 3.13. So what we're going to be going over is simply monthly reports, plans for 3.13 that look like the really valuable updates, video updates from inside Star Citizen Live, things like that. But if you're new to this channel, what Week in Review is an official bundle of all of the news that comes from Star Citizen. I pile it into one video on Monday, throw my opinions in there as well. And if you haven't yet, make sure you guys check out my live stream, twitch.tv/saltymike. I stream every day but Monday to get this video out to you guys, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. All right, without further ado, we have a ton to get through, so let's start with the monthly report. Right away, the intro highlights that they're planning on new worlds this year. I'm assuming that means Orison, which is seemingly possible, but I don't think that really means Pyro. I don't believe it, but we'll have to see. It is clear that through this, that is the push this year, to get to new worlds, new, pipelines to make new worlds more possible. Also, a lot of AI updates. They posted a couple videos first showing how FPS AI can, have confidence levels with weapons. They also posted a video with AI being able to target subcomponents, ship AI that is. First they blew off an engine, and then it immediately targeted the next engine. So the brain of the AI is getting stronger in Star Citizen. They also added another video where AI was able to EVA into a ship. And I don't know why, but for some reason when I saw this video, I was like, wow. I didn't imagine that being a thing because of the experience that we have in the live servers. And this is really a caveat here, is all of these updates, we're not really going to be able to see until server meshing is a reality, because on the live servers, the AI barely react to us or even shoot at us, right? So all of these updates are happening behind the scenes that we will see one day, but today is not that day, and neither is 3.13. For animations, they're clearly prepping for Crusader and the Orison landing zone with things like tourist animations for character art, new hospital armors, Orison clothing assets, more armor and backpacks planned for the personal inventory update coming in 3.14. Environment art, docking is in final art, colonial outposts, which they've talked about quite a bit and are going to continue to talk about them for some time. They also populated gas clouds with new asteroid types. I wonder if this is that Crusader asteroid type they talked about, or if there's additional gas cloud types for asteroids. Pyro's skybox is being worked out. I find this to be really interesting because it had been spoken before that the skybox that we're looking at is kind of a real skybox in the Star Citizen universe. And I think like one of the nebulas out there in the skybox is meant to be Pyro. So now they have to kind of mirror that back to Crusader perhaps, as well as things like the landing zone teams finalizing halls for an upcoming event. I don't know why they're hiding this. Last March, it was Fleet Week. It's obviously going to be Fleet Week this March, so I assume that's the same thing coming around. Ship art. Texas snow slowed the progress on the Nova tank. Taurus is in final art. New tints in 3.13, not 100% sure what that entails. Docking collars, hull degradation, damage states, FDS shields updates, and ship serial numbers all were worked on in February. The UK Hercules variants are being worked on in the UK. They're in progress. Gray box of the Redeemer also still in progress. Additional work on ship naming and hull degradation happened in the UK. Obviously, the first updates were from the Austin studio. For weapons art, and this happens, I believe, in the German studio, work that we saw already had seen previously a lot on weapon mounts, so we're not really going to touch much on that. The Moab bomb for the A2 is still being worked on, and the first pass for the Volt Parallax energy rifle, as well as final art on the standalone cutting tool, not a multi-tool attachment. So I thought that was something to really point out there. Size 7 Gatling gun, which we talked about in previous weeks in reviews, but more interestingly, they're investigating mag stripping. So we've heard this talked about, but adding and removing ammo from magazines is something that they want, and that investigation has started. So that's pretty exciting. Engine. I have no clue what's going on in the engine section of the update, so if someone here understands what they said, feel free to post a comment below and I will pin it when I see it. I just don't know how these updates would affect your average player and how they interact with Star Citizen. So if you do kind of understand that, try to include that in your comments. Gameplay features. Mobiglass apps like Reputation and the Asset Manager apps are now being added to the game, and these are planned for 3.13. Plans for a new cargo refactor as well, which will finalize all cargo within the grids. Physicalize all cargo within the grids. But since this touches so many other things, they need to figure out all those edge cases and possibilities that could happen. The UK team worked on bug fixing and a lot of mining updates that we will chat about in the ISC section of this video. Mission team work on improving and adding new missions, which happens every quarter and it's always a surprise, so very much looking forward to seeing what they did there. Player bounties are getting a lot of love they deserve. This is kind of one of the major points that are coming in 3.13 or coming soon that I wanted to point out, like that's what the thumbnail is really about. You're going to be able to track player bounties more easily because they're going to trigger alerts that they did something in this area, go over there. You're going to actually be following them and tracking them in the future, which is really nice. And that bounty is also going to have the fear on their head that they may have tripped something off. Bunkers are also getting an update. And honestly, any trespassing zone, not just bunkers, where the station or bunker is going to be able to fire on the player for trespassing without having to give them a crime stat. Getting a crime stat 2 for that is quite annoying because you can't land at certain locations, things like that. But some missions are required for you, even though they're lawful missions, to go down to a bunker and trespass, right? So that is a good update. Vehicle features, a lot of this big blob that you're looking at here is not that much to point out, but the big thing that I want to is that matching velocity of a targeted ship is back. It is coming back because it's needed to dock to a ship that is moving. This was an issue I took with the first docking update that we saw. The ship was never moving, and it just doesn't work. Like, you have to dock to a ship that's moving if there's a combat situation or so on. So getting this working and knowing that the plan was always for the ship to be moving while being able to dock as well is great to hear. And a casual mention of prelim work for jump points, as well as a missile update that was pushed for 3.14. That was mentioned here as well, that it should make missiles travel a lot better. Tools. Just the really only takeaway here is that they're still teasing that Tony Z update video. This kind of feels like the Squadron 42 update video now, if they're going to continue to tease it, and just leave it alone until it's ready. That's my opinion on that one. Turbulent, improvements to face over IP as well as voice over IP. I'll believe this one when I see it. I think mostly the fact that VoIP and in particular just hasn't worked that well. People really stopped using their microphones in Star Citizen. I really hope this becomes a thing that is useful, because grouping up with players can be so much easier. Meeting new people, those kind of things, if it works consistently. Their first server meshing milestone for Turbulent is complete as well. No details on how many milestones are required, but hey, they're working on server meshing. That's always a positive. And lastly, for VFX, sounds like we're going to get an update to how bad scanning looks. We're going to talk a lot more about scanning for the SCL update of this video, but for the visual aspects, VFX looks like they're working on something there, because it is a pretty big eyesore for a game that is so beautiful. Now, moving on to video updates. We had an ISC that started out with a featurette on the new cave entrances. I mentioned last week that I was pretty surprised that these moved along quite quickly, and they look very different from the previous update that we saw. So what are we going to get in 3.13?
With 3.13, we are adding 6 new entrances to the game. What we want to build upon is adding a sense of scale. We want to give them huge open environments where they are unable to get out of unless they use their ships, vehicles in general, and give them the opportunity to just explore.
6 new entrances is pretty cool. Likely, I think 3 sizes for ship entrances, maybe small, medium, and large, and 3 vehicles would be my guess. Or we also saw a snowy cave in that clip, so maybe that's the type of variation that they're going for. But when are they going to add some gameplay to these? Right? We had some missions that weren't so great in the first update. What are they going to do to add to that?
We played a bit around with the actual layout within those large entrances to provide different spots for cover, hiding, that kind of stuff. So I can see the players having lots of fun in there.
This is just another great example of making a small change that can add a lot to the game, but they also didn't highlight the fact that there's going to be any NPCs down there, no real missions related to them other than the ones that we have, at least no updates as far as we know to that. Then we moved on to the mining sub-component featurette, and I think the first thing they're going to need to explain is why they need to do more updates to mining.
So when it comes to mining, we still need a lot of customization for the player. The player needs to be able to choose how they want to play this game and change the ship and the mining laser based on the rocks they want to harvest, the challenges they meet. They need to have access to small little tuning parameters for their mining lasers, and this is where the mining passive components come in. We did initially the mining consumables. They offer that customizability to the player, but they are something that you use now and it runs out. We wanted something where the players invest in a thing and it's with them, and they have the capacity of just swapping them out as they see fit.
This doesn't entirely make sense from a prioritization standpoint for me as a player as to why to work on mining, but the idea of passive components to your laser does. I mean, only having them be triggers, it was kind of weird, and the keyword here is passive, right? So it appears throughout the video that any component that is active acts like the consumables that we had before, but the passive ones add additional characteristics to your lasers. The one question that I have is, are we changing the way the features on something like a Lancet versus a Helix has now? And are we customizing it with these components, or are they going to have their own characteristics and then we add on to that? That would be the only thing that wasn't really talked about in the video. They also made a UI update that really improves the left side of the screen.
We've also updated the mining UI, the active module section specifically, to show the individual bonuses that are actually being gained or lost depending on the module that's equipped and installed. You'll now see that the module you've got installed will actually show you the values that are being modified when they're active. This is basically just a bit more in the way of signposting, as we call it, to allow people to see at a glance what they're currently modifying, what they've got equipped, and this will hopefully prevent a little bit more confusion in that regard.
The big update here, they never even mentioned. It was casually mentioned in the monthly report that the range of the laser is going to show whether it's an optimal or adequate or inadequate range. That is very helpful to the user because it was kind of confusing on how far to be effective while mining. And yeah, they just want to do a better job of signposting and explaining to the player exactly what the laser is doing. So they're also going to highlight what the passive components and active components add to that and how it affects the rock that you're mining. So what is the difference between passive modules and active ones or consumables?
The difference between mining consumables and mining components pretty much is the fact that you don't have to constantly go to a shop and replenish them. Another difference between mining consumables and mining components is the level of power they provide. Consumables, since you do run out of them the more you use them, have a little bit more power. The passive ones have a little less power. This is done mainly to balance them, because something you pay for once and it doesn't run out, it cannot be at the same power as something that you have to constantly replenish. Components also have different tiers of power, and for some of the components the ultimate tier is gonna get very close to the mining consumables in power, but those components are gonna cost an arm and a leg.
All right, all that makes perfect sense, right? But in the past, they have completely missed the mark on pricing. The Helix laser went down in price, and it is less than one mining run, even with a stock laser, to purchase it. There's no upgrade path. There's no grind to mining. There's no reason to do it. There's nothing to work towards. So I don't have confidence that they're going to do a good job with the passive components on pricing either. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I think these updates are good, but I think that they really have to hit well on their implementation, and they haven't been perfect in the past. The next thing is mind-blowing to me because they're not done with mining.
As soon as our work is going to be done with mining components, we are looking into mining gadgets. Mining gadgets are going to be, let's say you're in a prospector, you encounter a giant rock that you cannot mine because your laser is not strong enough. You can EVA out of your prospector, place a mining gadget on the rock that lowers its resistance, and then get back to your ship and mine. The only problem is you're going to be with your pants down while you do that. If a pirate comes in and tries to shoot at you, you pretty much lost your prospector.
All right, this seems cool, of course. I think it takes a note from Elite Dangerous kind of mining a little bit, which is awesome because I think Elite Dangerous does mining really well with they like place charges and things like that. So that could be really cool and add to the Star Citizen mining experience. But again, the fact that we're still working on mining is nuts to me. But before we move on to SCL, I do want to provide some feedback. And this feedback has already been delivered to the developers, and we'll see what they do with it. For me, the issues with variables in mining is it has nothing to do with the laser or the components or the consumables or the subcomponents. It has everything to do with the rocks, how big they are, how tough they are to mine. So I have yet to find a rock that I cannot mine with a Lancet and Surge combo, or previously in previous updates, a Helix laser, right? I've never come across a group of rocks that provided so much material that I needed a ship larger than a prospector to clear it. Further on that point, the mole is pointless. Size 2 lasers fit on the mole. Their only difference from size 1 lasers is range, which is probably the least important characteristic on the lasers. If they provided more power than a size 1, it would make a lot more sense. Combine that with extremely large rocks that require multiple people to break. Right now you use multiple people to break a rock because it makes it easier. It doesn't make it possible, right? So also, maybe that really large rock will provide so much material that it requires a larger hold to use it, i.e. the Argo mole. So that's some things with the focus on the components of the laser I find to be weird. Hopefully, maybe these updates to asteroids that are coming in the very near future, I think some of it is coming in 3.13, will provide some of these changes as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. For me, that is what I would like to see change with mining. But now let's move on to SCL. So in short, it was on the vehicle tech team. So what they do is they make tools that make the ships able to function in the game. They don't decide how the ship looks. They don't decide how we interact with it. They just make sure we can interact with it and it works. So the first question was on physicalized components and damage, which for me is crucial because this is what is needed to get to the stage of disabling ships eventually, boarding them, salvaging them, stealing them. So where is that?
Where things are currently at is on the core gameplay pillar. Rich Tyra and the physics guys have been doing a ton of work just going back and forth with narrative because again, we have some real materials, like a titanium or whatever, but we also have things that are created from in-game lore that are lore materials. Let's say that it's a real material that exists, just not in the real world. So we have to come up with all those values, and they have to coincide with the reality of a value. So it's even just getting the details of all of that. Then beyond that, it's talking about what's the kinetic sort of reaction of it, the radiant reaction. I've got a list here: thermal, electrical, chemical, cold, heat, rarity. Like there's so many layers of it. So really right now it's a big Excel sheet of here's all the surfaces that we're going to need, here's all the reactions that those surfaces do, where can we get that onto the content teams, and then once we do get that on the content teams, it's going to have to go to all the different experience teams. So vehicle experience team will have to tweak everything, because imagine what's going to happen with the ships once it goes to physically based setup. That changes the ball game, because now all of a sudden the art of that ship informs what the armor is, how strong it is, and this to balance is just going to take some doing. But just do appreciate the complexity of the task, and it would be less complex if we didn't have any assets. But again, here we are a couple of years running, so we've got a lot of assets already in place that need to be updated and converted to such a system.
Now, this isn't coming anytime soon, but when it does, it seems like it's going to be pretty interesting. And the next thing was on scanning and radar. What's going on with that? Just a note here, this was a 20-minute answer, I think, that I've clipped down to 2 minutes. So yeah, it's a little jumpy.
We're trying to make it so that it's easier to find entities in the vastness of the of space and the CIG universe. And once you do identify them and get up to them, you can scan them and get worthwhile information that you want from the entities. In the past, I think we got the ship class, the pilot, the owner, and the health of the ship. We want to expand that to more useful info, like what's the weaponry of the ship, armor of the ship, does it have cargo?
This is all being attacked together. So FPS scanning and ship scanning are all generally using the same systems. They just really rely heavily on different signatures. So to go back to one of them, Kirk mentioned dB, decibels. I mean, doesn't make a ton of sense that a ship in space is going to be making a whole bunch of noise, but it makes tons of sense that a character or even an item is going to make a lot of noise. So what's interesting is if you have a generator in a room that's emitting a ton of dB, you can actually stomp around that generator and nobody's going to pick you up in the dB sort of thing, because you kind of get that I call it thief gameplay, where you're in the shadows or whatever, you're being occluded by that given sound, or it's being attenuated that way. For example, when we go active missiles, like if you're going to this active sort of combat mode with missiles or whatnot, it's very Hunt for Red October kind of moments, like an active ping, right? As soon as you go active, you are super hot on that radar, so you're going to be able to be locked on. But you also know that guy's turned on his missiles and everything, so he's about to shoot me.
The other big change to this thing is making it more data and design driven. So design now has the ability to make a scanner that finds things for medical, design a scanner that's made to find things that's more for like pirated cargo. Design can now make upgrade paths to specific tiers of scanning. That won't be in the initial tier. This framework just allows this gateway to open up for design.
I think the key thing here is that they want to give us more information. And again, like they just provide the tools within scanning to allow the designers to make a lot more with it. And the thing that sticks out most to me is something like the Eclipse. When it's going into missile mode or whatever, it's going to be really hot and we're going to be able to see it. Whereas stealth plays a role into getting close enough to use that missile or something like that. Some things that were left out, the UI team is trying to group things so they're easier to understand, meaning like interior info, exterior info, like weapons, things like that. They also want us to be able to scan for certain types of rocks, like FPS or ship mineable, or even it sounds like the mineral, possibly. And ship spawning has a lot of tech hurdles. They've got it working with the Constellation, but one of them is a cargo revision that is related to physical inventories that will remove the cargo grid, actually. Like, cargo grids are going to be gone, it kind of seems like, but they were mentioned in the monthly report, so it's hard to tell how that's going to work exactly. But that kind of does it for SCL. It was a lot of really long-winded answers to only a few questions that I thought were really useful, but as always, the link for it will be in the description. Other updates. We had a lore post on the company that makes environmental suits. The sub promotion this month is skins for the lightning weapons, a green one for the $10 subs, an orange one for the $20 subs. Subscriber ship of the month is the Mercury Star Runner, and you can purchase the Nomad at a discount if you're a subscriber. And lastly, there was a sneak peek for more homesteads. Actually, one more thing, there's going to be maintenance tomorrow, so if you're going to be playing Star Citizen tomorrow, it might not be possible due to that maintenance. And that'll do it for this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I did update the camera. If you guys haven't watched Answer the Call yet, this is my first video with an updated camera, and I bought this for you guys. So YouTube definitely has quality standards that are much higher than Twitch, and I'm trying to meet those with a nicer camera here for our weekly updates. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit a like down below, and yeah, leave some comments on anything we talked about today, and let me know if I missed anything from this week. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great one.